And I tell you to break clean, watch yourself at all times, shake hands now, may the best man win. Good luck to both of you.
Round one, there's the bell. Speed called by very excellent, the uncrowned heavyweight champion.
Welcome into another episode of That's Boxing Podcast. I'm Dust.
I'm Coach.
Coach, you look like you got a new camo on.
Yeah, this isn't brand new. I bought this for a fight like a month or two ago.
You're looking crispy. What's going on with this shirt? Coach Josh, who made this for you? Please tell me you didn't make it.
No. This is from my wife's bachelorette party. The girls made it for her. And then
nice.
I kind of just took it because it's me on my own shirt.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you got to represent yourself.
You're looking good right now. You're looking
sometimes
fresh.
in life you have to give yourself your own awards. You can't wait for the award ceremony to come to you. You gotta give yourself the prize.
I can see how you would need to do that. Others, the accolades just heap on.
Got me.
Well, we're back. We're back in the studio.
Back in the state of Oregon.
Back home. It was a wild trip to Vegas. Great trip. I think we got to break down some fights.
Yeah, let's break it down.
Well, first of all, Top Rank was cooking. Top Rank special was in full effect.
Holy smokes.
I believe it was 6 undefeated fighters went in, 6 undefeated fighters emerged. Top Rank knows what they're doing.
They know how to run it. It was actually 7 undefeated.
7, oh my God.
If you reference Coach Josh's Substack, where I'm publishing my articles, you can use that as a companion piece for all your facts, figures, and updates with the pod. It's like, they go hand in hand. So if read up over there, and then if we say something wrong on the pod, drop us a comment. Say, read your own article, dumbass. It's 7 undefeated fighters. Mm-hmm. Okay, for real.
Well, if you hit that parlay that we told you to do, that we tell you to do most times, we were a little more adamant this time. That was pretty good. Pretty good for you.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to Dr. Reed, who listens to our podcast and hit me up with a comment about our last episode that indeed cranial swelling can make Tourette's worse, as it is a neurological disorder. So, hey. Our boy maybe might want to, I don't know, see a doc.
Yeah, you probably should see a doc.
But appreciate that medical input, medical fact check.
Well, that sounds like we got some good listeners out there, some educated individuals.
Listen, we are a highbrow. We were just talking about this a second ago, that like in Vegas and all the press stuff, you gotta be not cool. You gotta be pressing everybody for the interview and shoving your phone in their face and just, to be honest, looking like a dweeb.
There was some dweeby looking guys out there. Our competition in this media space is they ain't dressing up nice.
And it's just not us. We just want to hang out and talk shop and really get into it and chop it up with people, and that's not it. You can't be doing that.
And some of the guys who got really good FaceTime, we were asking the most generic questions. When's your next fight? When do you think you'll challenge for a championship? I'm like, come on, guys. This is hard. This is not the hard-hitting questions the fans are interested in listening to responses on.
I mean, I just want to ask like a real question. Like, okay, so whatever. You always take this angle or that. How do you think this is going to affect you? Like, what's your, I don't know, anything critical. No one asks anything even remotely critical. Like, what's something you've been addressing in the gym that you think might challenge you as you advance in your career? Like, nothing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we think about boxing from such a technical, actual, the chess match of the boxing match. And a lot of the media, I think they just get caught up in the genericness of this everything but the actual sport.
Right. It's like the drama of the inner person. Like, what do you think about this person, that person? It's all referential as opposed to about their actual like craft of boxing.
You know who I think is doing great work right now is Andre Ward with his ATS.
He does like a long form sit down.
I listened to almost the entire hour and a half thing with Lamont Roach. It was a really good interview. That guy's winning a lot of people over with his style in that interview especially. But they talk about Gervonta Davis the whole time.
Right.
I felt kind of bad. It's like, he knows he's attached to this man, and they're gonna have to talk about it. But at some point, you're gonna have to separate yourself and let's talk about boxing. Let's talk about what's really going on instead of like the TMZ aspect of it.
Well, let's talk about boxing. Let's talk about what's
get
really
into
going on. So let's just jump right into the main event. Kiki Torrez gets the decision win. We bet the over. And that's exactly what happened. He advances on. He passes the test. I guess the question is, how definitively did he answer the questions about him being the next American heavyweight, about his Olympic pedigree translating into professional success, and about all the questions pertaining to his size?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of lingering doubts after that performance because, it was not a good match. Stylistically, there was not a lot of back and forth, interplay. He pretty much won the whole fight and landed the cleaner shots. I think the cut came from a headbutt or maybe an elbow as he drove his way in there. Honestly, it was, I want to hear from the Italian what happened. What happened to you, man? How come you look so tired and flat and annoyed? And, he didn't really make a good account of himself in there. So, Kiki's, in my eyes, he's still got a couple tests to take.
Yeah, you called it. We were getting into the event before everything started, and the ref who ultimately was the ref for this fight was there coming in, and you were like, "Are you working the main?" He's like, "I don't know. They don't tell us until right before." You're like, "Man, if you are, you better have your dancing shoes on because it's going to be messy. You're going to be very involved." And he was very involved to the point early, constantly breaking him up. It was an ugly fight. It pains me to say it because Torrez is one of my favorite fighters, one of my favorite guys to talk to, and I want him to go really far in the sport. But it felt like Vieino lost it more than Torrez won it. I mean, Torrez did everything and more that he needed to do to win that fight. He looked dominant. I maybe give Vieino 1 round, which after the point deduction is no rounds. But he didn't look composed. He was coming in head first. A lot of the stuff that we've called out as technical flaws that are going to have to be improved because someone could easily capitalize on them. I don't know why Vieino didn't. He just couldn't adjust, couldn't do anything. Never, stepped aside, never employed the check hook, never threw the uppercut. Just let Torrez run in, throw one shot, one bomb, and then land his head on his chest, clinch, reset, repeat over and over and over again. Later in the fight, Torrez was landing the check hook better as Vieino tried to work off of some more pressure. And that was a good punch. That was working for him. It was winning the rounds. But, looking at the CompuBox numbers, Torrez is a guy who, they're truncated numbers because he's stopping everybody by 3, 4, 5 rounds. But he's throwing 40, 45, up to 50 punches around. And in this fight, he's throwing 20 punches around, 17 punches around. Not good.
Yeah, some of the sequences, especially that right hook of his on the incoming Vianello, he wasn't able to follow it up for a couple of reasons. He was kind of selling out and really throwing that punch just about as hard as he could, and it was smacking the taller man on the side of the head and kind of clotheslining him, with his momentum to pass him by, putting Torrez behind the opponent. At one point, the referee said, "Hey, man, turn around. Let's go."
Right.
Because he had his back turned multiple times in the second half of the fight as he was kind of letting that momentum of that punch kind of drive him forward and out of position. So it was not easy to follow up. It was like he said in the post-fight there when we were observing his post-fight interviews that he was looking for the one-hitter quitter, and his dad was telling him to throw more combinations, and he'll try to listen better to his team.
Yeah, he's not that kind of guy. I mean, that's not his punch style. I always liken it to Beterbiev, where it's like there's like Deontay Wilder power, which is like from God, one punch. You only need to be great for a quarter of a second. And then there's this like people that have no power. And then and maybe Tank is in that Wilder kind of category. And then there's this like medium hands. Like you got heavy hands, but it's not one punch and you kind of accumulation damage. And you can tell, oh man, each one hurts. And he's in that category. And I think he's a great competitor in that category because he's so fast and he throws punches and bunches and he can really let his hands go. And when he's throwing 50, 55 punches around and, 25, 30 of them are landing on you, he just does damage and wears you down and you can't keep up with it. But when he's loading up on that one and it's reset, that's not the kind of work that's going to take you to the next level of competition.
Yeah. So what's next for him? Is he going to get a dance partner that he's going to be able to shine against, or is he just going to be the same guy over and over again? I was watching some old compilation videos and I came across a fight I'd forgotten about, and it made me think of Kiki and the potential that every puncher has. So back in 2003, a boxer named Corey Sanders from South Africa, he fought Vladimir Klitschko for the WBO World Heavyweight Championship, and he's a southpaw, weighs 225 pounds, this Corey Sanders, and he dropped and stopped the champion in the second round. He was just way too fast. That left hand was landing heavy, and he dropped the champ and shook him and shocked the world, one of the biggest upsets at the time. And it kind of showed there's a blueprint for this, that if you can start strong and attack the bigger man, and catch him cold early, you can do something. And I think that's kind of an interesting comparison there that people have kind of forgotten about Sanders. He retired back in 2008. That was his biggest win for sure. And this should be out of a movie here eventually, because in his follow-up fight a year later in 2004, Vitaly Klitschko came and knocked him out in the 8th round and took that belt back off him. And so he's, hey, his brother took care of business for him. So that's kind of a crazy story, but that's something to look at if you want to go back and watch Corey Sanders versus Klitschko back in 2003 to see how a smaller southpaw can win if he starts strong and violent.
I mean, I'm over the size comparisons here. I know it's probably annoying to compare boxer to boxer, and every boxer has their own unique style, but look at these two guys, okay? One guy is 6'3", 78-inch reach, 226 pounds. The other guy's 6'2", 76-inch reach, 229 pounds. Basically the same stats. Who am I comparing? What two heavyweights is that?
6'3", 229? That sounds like Alexander Usyk.
And the other's Richard Torrez. So and they're both southpaw. And they both employ that, in and out movement, footwork pattern, busy. It's like I watch him fight, and it's totally unfair, but it's like I want to push Kiki more toward. I'm like, here's a guy. People are always saying you're undersized. Here's a guy who's your exact size, actually 10 pounds lighter than you, who's the number 1 pound for pound boxer in the world. Undisputed champion, first in 20 years, 4-belt era heavyweight, who just beat 2 giants back to back, each of them twice. There's no reason you can, and no doubt Torres has heavier hands than Usyk. So, can you learn something from this guy's style? I don't know if they're watching the film in camp, but I'd be looking at this going, okay, what's he doing that's way more measured, way more calculated, way more adapt to his size at putting these big guys down? Because it wasn't what we saw.
No, well, he started with some, this Usyk-esque tactics in the first and second round, with a little bit more busy with his feet and his lead hand up and working and kind of circling the wand of the fencing lead hand. But that kind of went away quickly. I think he doesn't want to be anywhere but up close, right? I think that's where he's comfortable. I think that's where he feels like he can dominate, and he's going to have to learn to box a little bit more in the mid range. And
well, what's close? You mean fighting in the clinch?
I mean, literally, like he had his head on dude's chest, and he was punching above his head, completely blind.
It was pretty funny,
and but
nobody wants to be there. I don't think anyone just says I'm going to fight in the clinch the whole time, because you're constantly getting broken up and interrupted. There's like in the pocket, and then there's like slightly mid range where you're going outside, in and out. And I think he likes to be in the pocket with the escape route ready to go, which is why he's bouncing back and forth from the lead back foot, right? And then when he hits the gas, he comes in, boom, 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 and he's throwing ones and twos straight down the pipe, fast and heavy. And if it goes sideways, he ducks out, takes the angle, and resets. That's where he wants to be for his power, and that's where Usyk fights all the time. I mean, Usyk's like never on the bike. He's always like right there to be hit, but you can't hit him. And that you can't hit him part is the part I want Torres to get. Instead of that head first, I want the head, neutral over the body, the whole body, the hips coming in, and not just the head first plunging in.
Well, let's take a road trip down to California. We'll bust into his gym and we'll tell him what's up. Hey, kid.
We might need to. Somebody needs to, because I want to see him go far, and I'm sick of people saying he doesn't have the physical attributes to do it, because I think he does. It's just the game plan behind it. Because here's a guy with the same attributes who's on top of the world. I don't get it.
Well, hopefully he can get another fight and show us a little something different. I think it's possible, and with the right training, he should be able to get it done. Will he be Usyk level? I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, Usyk was a smaller boxer. In the past, he's moved his way up to the weight classes where Torres has always been a heavyweight. So maybe he's not accustomed to moving at that with that kind of speed and that kind of frequency of output. But it's hard to say, man. We just got to see this kid grow. That was a big test. He didn't fail it. He just didn't ace it.
He passed it. It just doesn't bode well for the future. But I think you're right. It was a big moment. He was very honest in the post-fight interview, saying the moment got to him and he was looking for that one punch. And if he can settle down a little bit, I think he's better than what he showed, which is great because we didn't know what it was going to be. He's in there with a real guy, live contender, and I'm excited for where he goes, but I just want to see some of these improvements. In the co-main, Elvis Rodriguez drops a majority decision to Delgado. I was leaning Elvis in this fight. I thought it was going to be close. It was very close. One judge had it a draw. Other two had Delgado taking it by a round. I honestly thought Elvis won it watching the fight live. But there wasn't any major moments in this fight. It was just kind of back and forth, tit for tat, and I could have gone either way.
It was kind of fun because for you guys listening, we weren't actually together during the fight. They sat us in separate booths or boxes, I guess. So we didn't interact during the fights at all, and then we get to talk about it later. So it's kind of cool hearing your take on it, because I thought Delgado won, and I scored it a draw. Though I honestly scored every round, one round at a time. During the break of each round, I had my notebook, and I would write down anything notable that happened, and I would score the round based on my impression of that round, an honest judge's approach, and I scored it a draw. So, it's funny how my intuition said Delgado, but my scorecard said draw.
Yeah.
And my angle of the fight was different, because now I've seen some clips on Instagram and shit, and there was some blood and stuff I didn't even see, you know, in some of these fights, and like some of the knockouts look way more violent than they did in real life, you know, that up close view, because like we were above, kind of like a bird on a wire looking down on the fight. Not too high where I couldn't see. I mean, I could have hawked a loogie land right in the middle of the ring. You know?
It was so close. It was a great theater, very intimate. Like for being up high, getting a view of the whole ring. I was still like, yeah, I'm so close. Like I could probably jump into the ring.
Yeah, I could probably make that jump.
Yeah.
Alexander. What's the guy who shot the dude and jumped off and broke his leg?
John Wilkes Booth.
That's my guy. Yeah. Okay. That's not my guy. Okay.
In case Top Rank is listening, that is not our guy. We will not kill any boxers.
Thank you, Top Rank, for getting us in the building and letting us work. You can check out the Substack and read up on a full breakdown of every fight that happened on that card, because we're going to always pay attention to every fight, not just the main events. So that co-main was decent, but I think a rematch is in order. I think neither one really came out looking like the victor. A guy's got to win, and I think the right man won. But,
no, you don't. You scored it a draw.
Well, my impression, was that like the guy...
There's no impression. How many times I got to...
There's just the
podcast. There's no...
Okay, well, I think a guy won.
Yeah. A guy won.
A guy won. Let's run it back and make sure the right guy wins.
You know what? I'm adding to my tirade, my endless tirade. I want open scoring. I think every round, but if you do it every third round, that's fine too. And I want... Maybe you got to win by 2. Otherwise, you got to run it back. You got to win by 2. You got to win by 2 points, because it's too close. It's just like, man, this is an inherently subjective scoring criteria, and if you win by 1 point, you win.
Let's just take it back to the old days and just go until one man quits.
I'm good with that too. 25 rounders.
Yeah, just all night, dude.
And they got to run it back in 60 days. Just that's the standard. 60 days pass, boom.
All right, you heard that, WBC, WBO.
That's it. Put me in
IBF.
charge. Dana
We
White.
got the new president right here.
Hit me up. Other fights that went down that weekend. Tim Tszyu got back in the win column, got back in the KO
I
problem.
called that one all wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think you said Tszyu, but you thought he was a live dog in there.
Yeah, I thought he was going to have a good punch, and he looked like he was going to be able to do something. But I think I talk about the moment. It looked like the moment got a hold of the kid a little bit out there, and Joey Spencer, and realized, oh, shit, I'm on the wrong side of this thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that moment gets to you, and it makes you perform poorly. So he did not perform to his best. But Tszyu's back in contention again. He said, and now, of course, the Keith Thurman fight is online. He was down there recently, fought Brock Jarvis, a brilliant KO of his own with that uppercut. So we're looking at this eventual showdown between two successful knockout punchers. But my heart favors Tszyu in that. I don't know, Keith once upon a time Thurman, I think his time has passed. He's good enough to beat a Brock Jarvis, but I don't know if he's good enough to beat a guy like Tim Tszyu. But it should give us a classic, an all-time classic for however long it lasts. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's a great fight. And honestly, I was just pulling up, who are the champions at 154? Because this is the division we keep talking about. That it was 147 a little bit ago. We were talking about dead 154s, and now 154 is where so many exciting fighters are. And honestly, even Tszyu taking that slide, his career just got so derailed there by those 2 fights. But I put him right back in the mix of the top 5. I mean, who's there? There's Bakram. There's obviously Terrence Crawford, but now he's kind of a 168er.
Well, and he's untested even. I mean, he beat the guy, but he's,
Yeah, he hasn't really fought at that weight class.
Exactly.
Then you got Fundora, Ortiz. You got Madrimov. You've got Laura, Lubin, not Callum Smith. That's it.
I would be gunning
Walsh.
for the rematch with Fundora.
Xander Zayas is kind of a fringe contender in there. I'd put Tszyu. What's your top 5? 154. Who's number 1?
Crawford.
Crawford? You gotta go. I'm gonna go Virgil Ortiz, just because I can't say Crawford because I don't know what weight class he fights at.
Yeah. I mean, just because he's like top pound for pound, it kind of puts him at the top of his division.
Okay, all right, we'll go Crawford, and then we'll go Ortiz.
Ortiz has done more work than some of the other guys. Had some close fights in there, but we got to put him up there above like Madrimov, who hasn't.
Well,
shown,
he just beat Madrimov, right?
Yeah, and Madrimov, he's probably 3 or 4.
And then you got to go. I mean, Bakram's kind of untested, but man, he just looked like such a menace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, where's he at, man?
Yeah, he's got to get something. I mean, no one wants to fight him. He's not with a major promotional company, but Bakram's in there, maybe at number 3. I like Bahocek, maybe at 4.
Yeah.
I thought he edged Ortiz, but pause. Oop.
Hey.
And then that number 5 spot. See, real quick.
We didn't even say Fundora, and he's a title holder.
Yeah, but he's not better than any of those 4.
He's just big. He's just tall.
He's tall. I mean, he's great, but he's not. He's not. So then the 5th right there, you're like, all right, is it Fundora or is it Zoo?
I think they should rematch to figure it out.
That'd be great. That's the fight.
Yeah.
To see get that rematch going. But so Zoo back in the mix. I really like it. And then across the pond, we had Joe Joyce just firmly continuing his slide, getting outpointed, a unanimous decision loss to Filip Hrgovic, who talked a lot of shit and gets the win, but didn't look great doing it.
Yeah, that fight kind of snuck up and snuck under the radar. Got kind of, we definitely got busy over there in Vegas. I watched a couple of the highlights, but those guys have so worked their way down in the rankings in the heavyweight division. It's not really that exciting. Everybody's just waiting for, the big kings to come back.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of exciting heavyweight fighters out there. I'm curious to see what Usyk's going to do next. Yeah, but I don't think Hrgovic was kind of the boogeyman. He was the guy in that picture, and he's kind of just fallen out of that, and other people have taken his place.
Yeah.
Other news, 175 pounds, Bivol says, I'm not going to fight David Benavidez. You can go ahead and take that belt from me, and I'm going to do the trilogy with Beterbiev.
Yeah, that's the right thing to do. And I think I said on the pod just a couple episodes ago when that potential match came up, I said, that's not going to happen. That before the rematch, I said, that's not going to happen. I said, there's going to be a trilogy. And he said, if he wins. And I said, well, I think, that's definitely the path, And now he's an elevated champion. You could call him an email champ. He's going to have to fight somebody to actually be considered world champion, in my opinion.
I got to say, though, because, I agree with you. I hate the email champ. But he got the interim belt off Vosdik, which was a pretty big fight for your first fight at 175. And then he fights Morel as a defense of the interim. So he's kind of beat the number 2, 3, or the number 3, 4 guys to get so he kind of earned it.
Yeah, so he's clearly number 2 to me, And when you talk about lineal champion in the division, you got to beat the guy. There's all these different belts and all these different rankings. They make it so messy. People are trying to make a big deal out of this, like there was some kind of avoidance, some kind of duck quacking. But that's not what happened at all. I mean, the guy's going for legacy, and this could probably going to be Artur Beterbiev's retirement party.
I think so.
And then Bivol probably going to win it again, probably going to squeak by a close fight, and then we could see the Bivol Benavidez showdown.
It's funny how much I think I agree with you that Bivol will win again, but every time I think that, I challenge myself, and I'm like, why do I think that? I mean, they were both like really close fights. We always knew Bivol was the better boxer, but we thought Artur was the bigger puncher by a bigger margin than Bivol was the better boxer. And that's maybe what edged it in the first fight, because he was just hurting him so much. He was shelling up and he took the risks, but he could take more risks in the third fight and get knocked out. I mean, it's like...
Well, you just said it a few moments ago that we don't see Beterbiev with a single shot KO power.
Right.
So even, he might get caught slipping here or there and get rocked, but I don't know if he's going to get just iced.
True. He's got to land enough of those shots.
Mm-hmm. And time is passing, and the man is getting older.
But also,
every day.
How many people have gone 12 with him and not gotten knocked out? Only one person.
Guy, and he's done it twice now.
So the fact that he's done it twice, does that mean he can do it another 12, or does that mean the luck is running out?
Well, I like to say if these guys fought 10 times, something would happen. And so every time you get back in there, you increase the odds of it being that percentage of the time you're not going to win. Exactly. So I see what you're getting to here. And I'd say, just based on the competition I've seen between them, and I think that, and when you consider their age and such, and the meniscus problems with the Beterbiev, I'd say if they fought 10 times, Bivol would probably win 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
So this could be the 3 or 4 that he gets done. If Bivol has a slightly bad night, it's a Beterbiev win.
Yeah.
And then now they're 2-1 in the rubber match. And now are we going to see like the American go over and fight? I don't know. We'll see.
It'll be interesting. I mean, Mauricio Suleiman, WBC chairman, of course, comes out, issues this like scathing letter, like I'm personally slighted by Bivol giving up this belt. Obviously, he just wants his 3% sanctioning fee, and he I couldn't believe it. He disclosed like, he was offered $8 million to fight Benavidez, as if that's going to make him look bad. I'm like, dude, Bivol is like a man who carries himself in the sport very well, and I think it's the honorable thing to do the trilogy as promised. And hey, you still lost this guy. You avenged the loss with a win, but you're even now. So let's finish it off. If you're Bivol and you're thinking, man, I'm going to beat this guy, clearly 2 out of 3, I won. Then I'm going to go fight Benavidez and defend and beat him. You're the fucking man. I mean, you're talking about moving up. I think, to definitely Inoue, Crawford, Usyk territory. I mean, he's got the one loss, so maybe it drops him a little below those guys. But he's up there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It shows how valuable and rare a truly undisputed moment is in the sport now with the way the system is. Because as we saw with the heavyweights, when Usyk battled Tyson Fury, their first fight was for undisputed. The second one wasn't because some stripping happened somewhere in the middle. And now we're seeing that here with Beterbiev and Bivol, where the first ones were undisputed, and now this third one isn't. And it's so rare, not only to get the opportunity to do it, all the belts gathered in one place, but to be able to like have the sanctioning bodies on your side. But you're right about they want the 3%. It's just a big racket. That's why there's interim belts, and that's why there's intercontinental belts, and there's gold and platinum, series. They're just out here collecting cash off these fighters just to get, the WBC belt is the belt. It's the shiny green and gold thing that they're the ones that always force the guys to put the shirt on in the ring and the hat, and they're getting all tangled up and trying to do their post-fight interview while they're like jamming a shirt on this dude.
And they're like, while being like, we're a non-profit. This is a non-profit entity. Shut the fuck
I'm like, how do they get the kid to wear that one when you're undisputed? You're wearing multiple belts, but the WBC is on. You don't see a WBO shirt.
No.
And then you go to their store and they're selling the shirts to the fans.
Non-profit. Non-profit.
It's a non-profit. They're just looking out for the best interest of the boxers.
So if he beats Beterbiev and then defends against Benavidez and wins, he's now 2-time undisputed champion.
Yeah,
because they took it and then he won it right back.
Yeah, they take it right back. I mean, that's totally possible.
That's wild.
That's totally possible.
Well, let's get into fights coming up tomorrow. We've got a good one. Been waiting for this one for a while. And let's talk about the story of the belts at welterweight, Glamour division.
Talk about email belts.
So we had one of the best fights we've covered in the past couple of years. The final showdown between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. Crawford becomes undisputed for the second time at 147. Holds the belts, doesn't fight anybody, and then scatters them to the wind. And you get Fundora picking up a belt, Brian Norman Jr. picking up a belt, Mario Barrios picking up a belt, Jaron Ennis getting upgraded, and Stanionis getting upgraded. And so they've kind of all been sitting there for a while, inactive, and finally we get a unification bout. One of these guys is walking away with 2 of the 4 belts.
And not only 2 of the 4, but the ring is vacant. So the Ring magazine belt is on the line for this as well.
Right. So
it's a big deal. I mean, that's 3, 2 of the big ones and the ring, which is like really the 5th belt. So this is interesting. Make sure you do your research properly, because if you're looking on BoxRec, they do not list the belt for the Lithuanian kid, in Amanda Stanionis. He's got a belt, but because they got this, BoxRec has some beef that they're not listing.
They don't list the WBA?
They don't list the WBA belt. Double check that. Make sure I'm saying the right alphabet soup name there.
I know he's got the WBA belt, and I'm on BoxRec.
You can read my article. I wrote the damn thing yesterday. Let's see. I can pull up my own.
Yeah, they don't put the little crown next to his name.
Exactly. They don't recognize him as a champion. So if you're only using BoxRec as a source, you could potentially write an inaccurate article. But trust me, over on my Substack, you can only read accurate reports.
I only trust TikTok. That's where I get all my vaccine information.
Yeah. Boots has got the IBF. Eamantis Stanionis has the WBA.
Well, let's get into this fight. We've got a Lithuanian Olympian who has fought one time since 2022. Inactivity has plagued this man. He was supposed to fight Virgil Ortiz like 600 times. I know he had an appendectomy and appendicitis.
The first cancellation one is his fault.
Yeah. And then Ortiz gets rhabdo twice. Backed out of the fight. So this inactivity has just plagued this man. But he is a very, very solid boxer. Career campaigned at welterweight. He's a smaller man, but he's used to this weight class. He's never been stopped. I don't think he's ever been dropped. No losses. 15 wins, 9 by knockout. You know, he's got that come forward style, jab in your chest, high guard. Very fun. In my estimation of him, is very fundamentally sound, but doesn't excel in any one area.
He at the press conference yesterday. They said, they asked him how you gonna win this fight. He said, all gas, no break.
Interesting.
So, and then Boots said he's gonna run into something, gonna run into a rock. And I said, and actually that's not a bad take. I wrote in my article yesterday that I'm expecting an aggressive start from Stanionis and a patient, evasive start from Boots. And he'll be looking to catch him coming in, and it's on it's on Stanionis to win this fight, right? Mm-hmm. He's the B side in this fight. He's the underdog, and he's the aggressor. That puts him in the position where you got to go first, man. You make your move. If we're playing tic tac toe, you got to put your X down first, and I'll get to decide where I put down my O. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He has to go first. That's just his style, and that's the arrangement of this fight. And Boots is, I think, going to be considered to be the more technical, tactical boxer, and now that's going to put him in a position to land some nice counterpunches. But as we saw, you can't only be a back foot counterpuncher and win a close fight. You got to put combinations off the back foot, and you got to be able to hurt the guy off the back foot. So, now that's on Boots. You've been handed your cards. He told you where you put his X at. Now you got to put your O in the right spot, so you don't lose your O.
Well, Boots is coming in with a 6-inch, only 2-inch height advantage, but a 6-inch reach advantage. I agree. I think he's the faster, sharper boxer, more skillful, especially with counterpunching, which if I was Stanionis, I would fight the fight on the back foot, to be honest. I would make Boots get into his rhythm and try to change the pace of the fight and be a bit trickier. I think coming forward is what Boots is going to expect and what he's going to look for. And anytime you fight off that high guard, every time he throws the shot, he's got an opening, and Boots is going to find those openings. And I agree. I think it's going to be a slow start. Boots might even drop a couple rounds in the beginning due to inactivity, but 6, 7, 8, 9, if you let him get into rhythm and start letting him pick you apart, you're going to see Stanionis scared to throw, unsure of what to do, not having enough offense, and Boots will start to compellingly win the rounds as they go on. Yeah,
that's kind of the American style we see a lot, and that's why a lot of people bet for knockouts in like 7, 8, 9, because that's about how long it takes for the more patient, calculated puncher to find his openings and get the timing down. Go back to that tic-tac-toe reference. If we played like 100 games of tic-tac-toe in a row, and I put my first move down in the same spot every time, you already won. You're already winning. You already know. But Stanionis he's got to be smart enough to do something like you just said, do something unexpected, start the exchange in a different position. Yeah. So now you say, wait, what did he do? He put his X right in the middle of this time. He's been going on the outside, and okay, now it's a different game inside, and that's what we want to see from a good technical boxing match, worthy of a unification, worthy of the ring championship belt, and worthy of saying, yeah, I'm the best guy in the division, which is the potential for this fight is right there. So let's make sure these guys bring that to us, and it isn't just like we saw in the Kiki Torrez fight, the same exchange repeated for 12 rounds with no advancement of technique or game plan. And I think the potential is there, but we'll have to wait and see, man. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a 50-50 fight, but it's damn close to it.
It's a great fight. And so let's talk Ennis for a second. 33 wins, never dropped a fight, never lost. Knocks out 88% of his opponents. Fought some stiffs for sure. As you'd expect, not his fault.
That's what we say. That's boxing.
That's boxing. He's been dodged and ducked and all over the world. A lot of people for a long time kind of thought he was the guy. I mean, what people started going as far as saying Crawford was ducking him. He has some notable wins via Avanesian. I think he stopped Avanesian a round sooner than Bud. I mean, boxing math doesn't quite work out, but and then what's this guy? I always forget how to pronounce this guy's name. The guy who just went 12 rounds. Chukajan. Karen Chukajan. There's probably some lessons from his fight. I mean, Boots definitely won that a little more decisively, probably round by round on the scorecards. I think I'm looking at them now. You know, they're pretty wide, 6-7 rounds.
But he never dominated. And
But he didn't dominate.
At times he looked really frustrated.
Exactly. So,
And if you remember, he did knock out Avanesian, but he took some big punches off Avanesian, who went out there went to war, and that's what cost him the fight. He went out there and just sold his soul to try to beat the kid early and beat that American style by winning the first half of the fight, maybe even stopping him or hurting him in the first half of the fight. He took a big risk, and the reward was he got hurt. Yeah. Now, can we see something similar from Stanionis, or is he just going to rush in there, swinging wide punches and get caught in between? Because I'm telling you, Boots was very hittable in the Avanesian fight. I mean, he got his head turned around a couple times. So, you know, he's shown a good chin in those situations. But I'm like, yeah, the Stanionis, I think he can punch a little harder in Avanesian.
And the combination of these fights has taken some luster off Ennis. Plus, Ennis in his last fight at the end, he gave a very candid, you know, in-ring interview and said, man, making 147 is brutal. And this IBF rehydration clause, which is 10 pounds, is killing me. And, I mean, that's crazy. That means, like, I don't even understand how you control your rehydration. That means that he's walking around at 164, basically? Because there's no way you can, like, let's say you're walking around at 175 and you know you can cut down to 147, right? Or sorry, or 147, he has to walk around at 157 because there's no way you can walk around at 165 and then cut to 147 and then stop your rehydration before you get back to your normal weight, right?
Yeah, I mean, walk around weight and then like pre-camp weight and then camp training weight and then fight weight are all a little different. In the Lamont Roach interview today, he talked about he had the flu before the Gervonta Davis fight, and 5 days out, he was still like 9 pounds over.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and he was too sick to train, so he ended up just having to drink a ton of water and water load and sweat it out, and he made weight that way. But
he also let himself get back up to that weight if he needed to.
Right? Yeah. You know, it's interesting, you know, when Danny Jacobs fought Canelo, he sacrificed like $700,000 to not have to make a rehydration the next day.
Right.
Because he's like, nah, fuck that. I need my weight. You know, I got this puncher in there. I don't want to be diminished.
I mean, and it's so dangerous, right? I mean, the brain is
whole
surrounded
point
by
is,
water.
Yeah, let's get this, you know, it's supposed to discourage undercutting yourself, right? And cutting too much weight.
Right.
But it also encourages a risky return to the ring maybe before you're fully hydrated. So, you know, that could be a lot to do with his performance. And I think if he wins this fight, as you know, he's expected to do, it might be unify and fly, man. You know, he might just
get out of there,
get on the road again, because I don't think he's going to have the time to stick around to become undisputed in this division in the two plus years it'll take to round up the other belts.
Well, this would be a signature win. Let's get into Coach's Corner here real quick. Between these two fighters, who would you favor in terms of speed?
I'd have to go Boots.
How about power?
Well, the KO percentage, like you said, is a little skewed because who have you knocked out? But just looking at the stats, Boots has knocked out more people than Stanionis has stepped in the ring against. 19 knockouts for Boots and 15 fights for Stanionis. So, I mean, we got to go power for Boots.
Power for Boots. How about footwork?
I gotta go. I mean, if you're a seek and destroy, come head first boxer, your footwork is not notable. I won't say Stanionis' footwork is total trash, but Boots is more dynamic.
Boots. How about ring IQ?
That I don't know. That one's tricky. That one will have to. I think whoever went, you know, going into this, you got to give it to the guy with more experience, because you get your IQ through education. You get education in boxing by being in the ring. If you had 33 fights, and the other guys had 15, you've had more education and you have a higher IQ. So I got to go Boots.
So you're discounting Stanionis' amateur Olympic pedigree. I mean, Boots lives in the gym. He's got a lot of rounds in the gym, but Stanionis definitely with more amateur experience.
Yeah, it's not inaccurate, but not all amateurs are created equal. And not all amateur experience is going to give you the ring IQ to keep up in the pros. It's two different sports. I think if you're an Olympic gold medalist like an Usyk or Andre Ward, you're going to have to give him a little bit more props. But, you know, Stanionis, I have not studied his amateur career, but I don't think it was a lot different than his pro career.
Yeah, great point. So, I mean, that's why this is such a good fight, is it really boils down to ring IQ, right? Where Boots has a lot more standout attributes. Physically, he's got the length. Like you said, he's got speed, power. He's got footwork. He's the cleaner, more meticulous boxer. Boxed out of the Philly shell and can be really tricky and patient. And it's on Stanionis, who's very solid in all departments, but doesn't excel as much as Boots in these kind of basic raw attributes, to put it together and put together a game plan that can dismantle this guy who looks beatable if you can do that. And the if is a big if, because that's hard to do.
Yeah. But I like this matchup. American versus European. The flashy styles, the things we've seen from Boots where he goes slow motion on them and then snappy. Is he even going to have time to do that kind of thing? Because he certainly hasn't in his last 3 fights. That was when he was fighting really, undermatched opponents. So I think he's going to be forced to fight a little bit here.
All right, so drum roll, you got to make a pick. Where are you going?
Boots.
You're going Boots. Is he going to get it done by decision, by stoppage? The over-under in this fight, it's a 12-round fight, is 10.5. So people are not favoring an early stoppage.
I think the coach's corner is calling Boots' decision.
Boots' decision. I hate to agree with you because it makes terrible television, but that's exactly where I'm going to. Boots' decision. I think Stanionis is tough. I think he's shown a good chin. I think he can make adjustments. He's going to fight out of the high guard. He's going to be defensively minded, and I'm thinking he's going to play some games in there. I'm thinking he's smart enough to know that he's got to not let Boots get in rhythm, and he's going to prevent that. I think Boots is going to look good later in the fight, but it's hard for me to see him really putting it together to get the stoppage. And, these fights, it's like you're on the edge of your seat at certain moments, but then 12 rounds goes fast, and it's just not enough time to really figure out someone that's a worthy opponent like this.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely be watching. On the undercard, there's a couple fights worth watching. There's another mandatory in that same division, an undefeated fighter, Gyasev, another, hard to pronounce individual's name, that was actually supposed to be a potential opponent for this fight. But he'll be on the undercard fighting, I think, a completely undermatched opponent who's coming off a couple-year layoff with a bunch of losses and some suspect opponents. So we'll probably see a highlight reel finish there in that fight. Then we've got Omari Jones, who is one to watch. He just debuted feels like a week ago. It's probably a month ago. And he's coming again to put on a show. And then there's a third fight to watch on there in the co-main.
The co-main, man, the return of Raymond Ford.
Yeah.
The former featherweight world title holder who lost a split decision to Nick Ball. Just called out Shushu. I thought that hurt my feelings. We were hanging out with Shushu a bunch in Vegas. He's a nice guy.
Dude, he is the nicest guy.
He's the nicest guy. And Ray Ford was like, he's a bitch. He don't fight anybody. I was like, whoa, chill, man. I like you a lot as well. But he's getting back in the ring with Thomas Matisse.
That's a legitimate fight, man. That could be. I put in the article yesterday. I said, keep your eye on this one. This might just be fight of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Ford, man. He brings pressure, energy. He's not afraid to put it on the line.
And he's got explosive power.
Yeah.
We saw him cracking in his last fight. What was that? The uppercut that was knocking dude down twice and put him on skates, but the guy made it the distance.
Yeah. Gonzalez, that was a great fight. Even the Nick Ball was a split decision. I mean, that was a great fight. The Kolmatov fight will forever live as a fight of the decade candidate. Knocking somebody out in the last 10 seconds and winning me a bunch of money. Are you thinking that Matisse is a live dog in there, because he's a plus 750 money line favorite right now?
No doubt, man. He's rugged. He's tough. He's been around. I think this is going to be a lot harder fight than people are expecting.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, the same way Zoo is going to be a harder fight than people are.
Hey.
I don't have a good feel for this one. I was leaning for decision because I agree. I think Matisse is a tough guy, never been stopped, does have 4 losses, but one's kind of on a cut that, probably should have been stopped before the 4th. But I got to favor Ford just getting the decision. But we just said Ford's a guy that kind of risks it, and he'll, take 2 to land 1 kind of thing. And if Matisse can capitalize on that, he could bank some rounds and pull out a decision win.
Remember how frustrated he got with Gonzalez's evasive footwork to the point where he was like, come on, man. Let's go to work. And I was like, hey, that shows me that you're not trained and disciplined enough to know how to negate this guy's tactics.
Yeah.
So we'll see what Matisse brings with his footwork style. But if he's going to be effectively evasive and throwing combination punches off the back foot, he could really give Ford trouble in a long distance fight.
Man, you're really tempting me at that plus 750 money line right now. let's see, what's Matisse? Man, Matisse by decision plus 1,200. Oh my God. Oh, you're gonna make me do it. It's gonna be awful.
Just put the old greasy dollar down on it, all right?
We don't bet dollars. We don't bet dollars on this side of the podcast table.
I went crazy. Remember in Vegas, I put that $3 down on that fucking
On the
roulette.
and we lost it all.
We lost it all.
You didn't hit even. You didn't hit the color.
Or the fucking low numbers.
Yeah.
It came out green 0. I didn't even know it was an option.
Green 00.
They pulled that one out for losers like me.
Yeah, that was real. You were like, let me get some of this hotel expense money back.
I know,
Put
for real.
$3 on here.
But I mean, we were in that hotel for like 70 hours or something, and that was, that casino was like, that was the only money they took off us. Besides that, and the freaking chocolate covered almonds that Aaron Thompson lifted up in the hotel room. I know you're listening, champ.
Whatever you do, don't take anything from the mini bar. Oh,
They're gonna charge you immediately.
Yeah, I think I looked at that. It was like $85. But hey, that's the money we won. Betting the over on that fight.
Yeah,
so
man. That was I got in a little bit before you. I didn't go down with you to the William Hill sports book, but it's probably kind of cool betting with the slip and in person and stuff. A little bit different than the anonymity of the telephone
It
gambling.
felt good, especially because when I cashed out at the cage, there were just a bunch of fucking losers in line with me, and I was like, "What are you guys doing? Betting? I don't bet."
I just win.
That should be our slogan on our next T-shirt. That's Boxing Podcast. Don't bet. You know, because we don't bet. We
don't.
predict.
We predict.
We're clairvoyant. You know, we're up. We're up this year. We're back in the win column overall. There was some sketchy weeks there to begin this year, but it's, I'm feeling good about this. Except for this money I'm about to lose on Matisse because of you.
Hey, man, keep your eye on it. All right, so who are you picking in the Boots fight?
Oh, I'm going Boots decision.
Okay, so we're together on that one. I'm picking Matisse upset of the night on the fight of the year.
Wow.
That's
would that be the upset of the night? Who's most likely to hit the canvas?
The guy fighting Omari Jones.
Okay, all right. What's
Yeah.
your third question? I always forget your third question.
Man, they got fight of the night, most likely draw, biggest upset. So
Most likely draw. I think you just added that.
yeah, that's a new
not
one.
of your- Okay,
Yeah,
you're just
most likely
adding
draw.
ones. I mean, I think you got to go Ennis and Stanionis because it's a 50-50 fight. They could totally draw.
Well, I would say it's a 50-50 fight, except for one man's got 33 fights and the other guy's got 15.
Yeah. And one guy hasn't fought in 2 years.
No, who?
Stanionis. Or he's fought one fight
2024.
in 3 years.
He fought late 2024, right?
Yeah,
Check.
he fought in May 2024.
Right.
So it's been about a year.
Okay. It's kind of cool. In my job as a coach, I get to do film study and look at potential opponents for our fighters. And we're looking at some guys, and I see some familiar names, Like we're looking at a guy who fought a guy,
Right.
Elijah Garcia came up, and he just fought a couple weeks ago as a guy who might fight a guy who fought that guy. And then there's a Davis, one of the Davis brothers. Might fight a guy who fought that guy. And it's like it's funny how at BoxRec you get kind of going in these circles, and there's always a guy who fought a guy who used to know a guy who's going to fight my guy.
Yep. Hey, speaking of the Davis brothers, Keyshawn announced he's going to defend his lightweight title versus De Los Santos.
That'll be a great fight.
It's going to finish the job that people didn't give Shakur credit for.
When Shakur threw 7 punches
And won, brother.
with one hand.
With one hand. I think it's a dominant performance, if anything. I get it. People are bored. That was the night I got my surgery. I was recovering from anesthesia, and I was like, it's me and him, champs. We're going to make it through. And I'm laying there on the couch eating like a burger and like 50,000 French fries. I'm like so hungry. Haven't eaten. And we just watched him dismantle him. And I'm thinking, wow, this is incredible to watch. This dude's clearly fucked up his hand, and he's just like, this guy's a huge puncher. And then I get on the internet afterwards, and people are like, he fucking sucks.
Yeah, well, that's the internet, man. But we need those kind of people commenting on our posts. So you guys get out there, start commenting, liking, sharing our stuff. We need some of these terrible boxing fans to start talking shit about our show and our takes.
But they can't. There's nothing to say. It's just spot on takes, great
true.
picks, just
Those are
flawless
facts.
commentary.
Those are totally true facts.
We don't have one hater. We don't have one hater.
I want one.
I want
One
many.
crazy ass hater.
Yeah.
To start like a hate club.
I want a stalker. You know? Oh shit!
Oh damn! I'm looking out the window right now.
You're freaking me out. All right, man. You got to get to the gym.
You know what I like about the studio? It's in the basement.
That's true. We're safe.
We're safe down here.
Yeah. You know what? This is like negative. Do you have the same phobia of negative floors? What if we're like negative 50 floors?
Like you ever been in the channel?
The channel, excuse me? I don't go to those kind of establishments.
It's the tube, the channel, the tube that goes underneath the channel.
Oh, yeah, I have.
Yeah. So I will do it, but that sounds like an uncomfortable experience. So for you guys last week, remember, Dust was picking on me for being scared of heights and not wanting to hang out in the 36th floor condo suite that they hooked us up with over there at the Palms. But I got to clarify, I did spend the night up there. I did log my hours in.
You made it through one
and
night.
I didn't run screaming out of there, okay? So for you guys out there struggling with your own mental health issues.
You were screaming internally when we woke up in the morning.
Yeah, I was getting my ab work in for sure.
I was like, something is deeply wrong. You were like, all right, I'm going to go downstairs, and you don't have to go with me now, but I'm going to go. I'm going to go downstairs, and then you can come downstairs, and I'll tell you about it when we get downstairs. I was like, what is going on? I just woke up. What happened?
Hey, man, like you said, you really get to know somebody when you're traveling with them.
Yeah.
I know you like Denny's.
I don't like Denny's. I like breakfast.
You're like, I'm going back to Denny's.
I like breakfast. I don't eat until noon, 1, 2 o'clock. And at that time, I like breakfast. And that limits the options, especially when we got no car and we're in Vegas and we have to stay within a 2-mile radius of the Palms. Where am I going to eat?
I'll tell you, though, I know the Denny's wasn't that bad. But I tell you, we did it, and, put me in a boxing ring and I'll box. Put me on a motorcycle, I'll go 100 miles an hour safely in the right conditions. But some situations I'm not favorable towards. But I'd go back and do it again to run back that weekend we had because that's boxing. I mean, I had to do what I have to do for the love of boxing.
And let the listeners know I have not brought up all the phobias that were uncovered on this trip. I'm saving some for later.
Yeah, you got to have more. Yeah, you got to just sprinkle them out.
Yeah, we're gonna tease.
We can tell them. About the booth. I can't be on the inside of the booth.
Right, though. There's more. There's more. Don't stay tuned.
Yeah,
stay tuned.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys for listening. We're always here. We're always talking about boxing. Make sure you go and follow the Substack. It's Coach Josh. That's boxing. And you can read the articles that accompany the podcast now. And Top Rank, give us a shout out again. We're going to be coming down as soon as possible. As long as you need us back, we'll be there.
We'll be there. Until next time, I'm Dust.
I'm Coach.
And that's boxing.